What's up, everybody? It's Draymond Green. Make sure you subscribe to the Volumes YouTube channel below so you don't miss any more of this great content going forward. Man, I want to welcome my next guest, Hall of Famer, someone who I actually have the honor of calling a coworker today and a partner in crime. The incredible basketball player, but what I've said before, more importantly to me, I think he's an even better TV personality than he was basketball player, and yet he's in the Hall of Fame for basketball, so that shows you how great he is at this. And I know the Emmys have been rolling in, Emmy Award winner, but everything else will keep rolling in as far as Hall of Famer and TV as well. And I'm honored to have you as a guest. The Chuckster, Charles Barkley. What's happening,
Thank you,
brother?
man. Thank you. Welcome to the team, too. I mean, you're going to be great on TV for the next 100 years once you get through playing basketball. I will tell you this, though. Hey, man, don't rush it. Ain't nothing like playing. I tell people all the time, I don't care how much success you have on television, there's nothing like playing basketball for a living, those big games and things like that. There's nothing like it. And you can always be Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal, and Draymond Green for the rest of your life. But, hey, you play until they drag that damn jersey off of you, brother.
Yes, sir. Hey, I've heard you say that once before, and you know I've done some research before on J-Lo, and my fiance absolutely loved J-Lo. And one thing she said was when she did the Selena movie, that's what made her want to go into singing, because she was an actress at first. But the thrill and that rush that she got from being on stage in that movie is what made her then go into singing. Is that similar to what you're saying as far as TV and actually playing the game of basketball?
Yeah, TV is fun. I mean, it's a great way to make a living, but ain't nothing like being in the moment, especially like you have so much control to bring people joy in their lives. Like you think about this, like, no matter how bad shit going in life for somebody in Golden State, San Francisco, when the Warriors are doing good, it brightens up their day. And to have that type of power to like, man, these people, they can be having trouble at home, they can be having trouble at work. The joy you can bring them, there's nothing like that rush. You know, because people come up to you all the time. I say, I want to thank you for this. I want to thank you for that. And you're like, wow, man. Even though it's a stupid basketball game, it does bring a lot of joy to people. I mean, like I said, you could be having an awful day, but if your team is doing well, man, it's a really big deal. Like there's been times I've had people come up to me who were like battling cancer, who was sick, and say, hey, I just want to thank you for that ride we were on and things like that. So it's a really, ain't nothing like it, Dre. Ain't nothing like it.
Absolutely. And speaking of playing as long as I could possibly play, I can't help but to ask. I know since I started coming to Turner and working with you guys, I've been hearing even well before that Chuck's going to retire in about a year. Chuck's going to retire in about 2 years. And I know you recently just came out and said you maybe got 2 more years and then that's it. Like, is it serious this time, or do you just kind of take it year by year and go on how you feel?
Well, I think that you're going to run into this when you get older. Dude, I've been doing this 21 years. Like, if I was doing it 5 years, I wouldn't be thinking about retiring. Wow. So I'm in year 21 now. And then I got 2 more years left on my contract. And like I say, dude, I turned 59 last week. So I ain't no young-ass dude. And I'm smart enough to know, and I'm not one of those guys who worried about death. If I die tomorrow, man, I had a good run. But I do know I'm closer to death than I am living. And I'm going to be a grandpa hopefully in the next week to 10 days.
Wow, congratulations.
And I don't want to, like I say, I don't want to die on television. I want to die traveling the world, having fun. You know, I want to be a great grandpa. I want to be a great grandfather. But like I say, I'll be 61 in 2 years. And like I say, we don't know how this thing gonna end. But I want to be able to say, like, man, he wasn't working. He was traveling the world. He was having fun. He was golfing. He was fishing. Man, I just saw Charles. He was over in Italy. I saw him on, they had I just saw him, he was over in Germany. I just saw him, he was over in Spain. I mean, because all the work that we have done, going back to dribbling that stupid basketball in the parks and things like that, like you built yourself an amazing life, yourself and me. Like, why not enjoy the back nine?
Absolutely.
Because even though the work ain't hard and it's fun, you still have something to do all the time. That yes. I tell people, I says, you still have stuff to do all the time. And that's what, like, if I could just show up at the studio and just do basketball, like, no, I have to do X amount of interviews a day. You have to go and pump up the show. That's really what's really fun. I'll tell you this funny story. Not many people know this. And I'm probably going to get in trouble for telling you this. We actually hired Kobe Bryant.
At Turner.
But he didn't want to do all the other bullshit. This is one of the, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this, but this is one of the little things that we keep in the college. So he actually signed with us. But then when we started telling him, I had to do a bunch of radio shows. Like, hey, I go on this show on Monday. So, hey, from Thursday night TNT, same thing on Tuesday, same thing on Wednesday, same thing on Thursday. He I don't want to do all that stuff. He says, well, you have to promote the show, Kobe. So Kobe actually is so funny. And like I say, it's probably only 10 people in the world know that he actually signed with us. He's like, no, I'm not doing all that other bullshit. And he just nah. But it was funny because, like I say, we always have something to do.
Yeah. So wait, hold on. So Kobe signed, and he was going to be on just one of the guys on the Thursday night crew?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he had signed with us. David Levy, my old boss, had signed him to a deal, and we were excited. We were really excited. And then he called me back a week, 10 days later, somewhere in that time frame, yeah, Kobe's not going to come. We're like, why? Because he don't want to do all the PR stuff. He don't want to go on radio shows and talk about basketball. I'm like, well, that's part of the gig. Mm-hmm. I mean, people need to know, hey, I'm on Thursday night. Because if you notice when you do interviews, they're like, hey, welcome from TNT Thursday night, Charles Barkley.
Yep.
Same thing, you talk to Kenny and Shaq. They always, because that's part of the promoting the show. So it was funny, though. He didn't want to do all that. And he never came to work for us.
Wow, that's interesting. I think that's great for me, too, because the reality is you see the job that you guys do. And unless you're tuned into the radio shows or you catch one of your snippets when you break the internet, you don't really know anything past you going up there on Thursday nights. And yet it seems to be so much more to the job than people even know. You'll hear people say, oh, man, Chuck make all this money and he only work one night a week. And from what you're saying, that's far from the truth.
Well, it is far from the truth. Well, because really the only time you really work is during the playoffs. You work every day for 2 months. I mean, that's when it's hectic and there's a lot going on. But during the regular season, you really only working 1 day a week. So that's when you really have to pump it up more. Everybody's going to watch the playoffs. When the playoffs start, they on 40 days and 40 nights. But during the regular season, you have to pump it up all week. Hey, we're Charles Barkley Thursday night. I do that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. That's part of the gig. But Kobe didn't want to do all that stuff, and it never worked out.
That's funny. I mean, especially for someone as hard as working as Kobe, no, I don't want to do all that. But then you think about it, and the reality is, for everything that he gave to the game of basketball, I can understand him saying, nah, that's too much for me. I don't want to do that. And quite similar to what you're saying about being a great grandfather, I think at that point in his life, the most important thing for him then was being a great husband and being a great dad. And we saw that, we saw that with Gigi and her basketball career. You see the videos with him at the mall with the baby girl and all of that. So I think that's a very interesting, a very interesting thing overall. But,
and as a dad to a daughter, the bond you have. Like, I've been in the NBA for 37 years, and
Wow.
guys don't give a shit about sons, but they love their sons. They love their sons. But it's just something about a girl that she has you wrapped around her finger. And like, I used to joke about my daughter all the time. I said, my daughter asked me, Dad, I want to go to outer space. I was like, well, let me see if we can fit it in the budget. Like, there's no way you can tell your daughter no. Like I say, I've been in the NBA for 37 years. Dudes tell their son, like, get the hell away from me, man. No, you can't have that. You can't have that. But I ain't never heard one of my dudes say, yeah, man, my daughter, I ain't got no chance against her. Whatever she wants, I'm going to give her. And then when I got my daughter, I was like, damn, I know what you mean now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, nah, man, whatever. She just the most, like, it's crazy how they have so much control over you. And like I say, I've been around this game, and the guys will tell their sons all the time, man, leave me alone, man, and you're bugging the hell out of me. But when they come to their daughter, it's like, no, whatever she wants, she gonna get. It's a really crazy dynamic, but it's true.
No, as a father of two daughters, I definitely understand. And a son, I definitely understand that, because I think for me, like, everything with my son is, I want to give you all of the things that I had to go through without you having to go through those issues. But yet understanding that in order for you to become a man, I have to let you go through some of those issues, and trying to find that balance, I think, is always a tough thing for me with him. But with my girls, you're right. It's just like, all right.
They don't want half the stuff. You can buy them dolls and clothing, and they're good.
Yeah.
Like your son, he wants every sneaker. He wants every Jordan. He wants every LeBron. And then they want a cell phone. Then they want a car. I mean, like, it's crazy. Like, and the most difficult thing, and it's a very difficult thing, trying to figure out how much to give them. Because you can't, like, and there's no right or wrong answer. Because I've seen crazy kids. I've seen kids go to jail. I've seen kids who don't speak to their parents. I've seen parents who don't speak to their kids. I mean, it's such a crazy learning experience, because 99.9% of the players grew up poor.
Yes.
And now your dad's rich. And I can't even imagine how crazy it is now with the money you guys make today. I mean, I tell people all the time, dude, the most money I made in 16 years was $5 million a year.
That's crazy.
And I said, and that's after 16 years I made $5 million. I said, you got guys making 20, 30, 40 million. I can imagine, like, trying to, like, I can give my kid anything, but I'm not going to.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if there's a right way or a wrong way to do it, but man, it's really a tricky, slippery slope trying to figure out how much to give them.
Absolutely.
And because, like I said, you can give them too much. Like I say, in my years, I've seen a bunch of train wrecks. I've seen a bunch of great kids. I mean, I've seen good, bad, and ugly in my 40 years in the NBA of guys trying to raise their kids. Like I say, I can't even imagine what it's like with you guys making $20, $30 million a year, because those kids can read. They're like, my dad making $30 million a year. I can get anything I want. Like I say, my last year I made $5 million after 16 years, and that's a lot of money, but it ain't nothing compared. And bless you guys what y'all make today. But I couldn't imagine arguing with my kids today. My daughter, I only got one. Wait, trying to figure, like, Dad, I just saw you made $45 million, and I asked you for this, this, and this, and you're gonna tell me no? I'm like, I couldn't imagine what it's like for kids today when they see how much money their parents make, and they're like, Dad, you can give me anything in the world, which is crazy.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I remember when I was on set, your daughter was getting ready to get married.
Yes.
And you said, I told her you can either get the wedding or you get a down payment on the house. Y'all pick, and she picked the wedding. Did she still get the down payment, Chuck?
Dre, that was first of all, she went to Villanova and Columbia. I thought she was smarter. I was like, listen, you can get a big chunk of money to start a house and start a college tuition fund, or you can get an old stupid wedding where a bunch of freeloaders come up and drink up all your alcohol and eat up all your food, and that money's gone. And then she says, Dad, I want a wedding. And I'm like, I thought you were smarter, but it's your wedding. I said, number one, you better hope this works. I'm not doing this shit for your second wedding. You're going to get just as a fees on your second wedding. And, she stayed relatively in budget.
Okay.
But
that's good.
I wanted her, and I can understand, she wanted a wedding. It's her first time getting married. But I wish a lot more people would nah, you give me some money, because I can't imagine what it's going to be costing when kids go to school now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, damn. I think one of the great travesties in our country is what we charge education. I do. I think America is the greatest country in the world. You see all this stuff going on over in Ukraine and Russia. It's like, man, we're so lucky to be born in the United States. I mean, that's so crazy. And bless the Ukrainians. I mean, bless them. But what we charge kids to go to school today, it really makes me sick to my stomach, because especially Black kids and poor kids, they can't, they're eliminated probably from 65 to 70% of the great colleges in this country right off the bat. And I don't think that's fair at all. I mean, because, these people can't be writing checks for $75,000, $80,000 or getting in debt that type of way. So I wish they would fix the school system. So if a kid wanted to go to, let's say, Villanova, I don't even know how much it costs to go to Michigan State, but I'm pretty sure it's a pretty penny.
Yeah.
$60,000, $70,000. That's a lot of money, especially if you got 3 or 4 kids. Most people can't afford to get in that type of debt. And I wish we would fix that. I wish we would fix that school system in this country.
No, I think one of the biggest issues with it is, number one, you go to 4 years of undergrad, and then you get out, depending on, there's maybe 2 or 3 undergrad degrees that you can get, and you actually get a great job coming right out of that. For all the other ones, you need to go get a master's, or you need to go get a second degree. Then that puts you another $150,000 to $200,000 in debt. And let's say, for instance, it is a teacher. We know how little teachers are paid in America and how ridiculous their salaries are. So let's say it's a teacher, someone who's educating our children, which is important because they are our future. They're going to be in debt the rest of their life. They bring home $60,000 or $70,000 before taxes, and yet you're already starting off $350,000, $400,000 in debt. And then you have these kids coming from poor neighborhoods like myself, like yourself, and going into that debt. There's never a way out of it.
No, never.
Because in order to get these loans to actually go to college, you have Sally Mae and all of these people charging you 18% interest, and so you spend the rest of your life in debt. I actually never understood just the debt system and school system and how it actually worked in student loans until me and my fiance were years into dating. And we got to talking about us finally paying off our student loans. And my fiance ran track at Michigan State. She was on partial scholarship, yet she still has student loan bills. And I was talking to her, and she's saying, it's this amount. I've already been able to pay off this amount. And I'm just like,
she's only paid the interest.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I'm like, are you kidding me? Yeah, I couldn't believe it, because for us, you get all the free books. You get everything's for free. Yeah. So when I left school, I did leave in debt. I left with a $5,000 credit card bill that I had maxed out because I didn't have any more money. But that was it. I did not understand that. And she helped me understand it. And I don't know, if you're not becoming a professional athlete or a lawyer or a doctor, how can you ever, or an entrepreneur, how can you ever pay those things off?
The system is stacked. The system is stacked against you. Listen, I'm very aware of racism. I grew up in Alabama. Racism exists, always has, and unfortunately always will. But the biggest problem one of the biggest problems we have in America is really just about economics. It's rich people screwing poor people because we put poor people in this situation where, number one, we put them in the worst neighborhoods.
Yeah.
We put them in the worst schools. And we say, good luck being successful. And then you get some fool on TV telling you just got to work harder. You're like, no, you didn't work harder, brother. You just had an advantage. But you really, unless you got to have great self-esteem, great discipline, because I remember when I first started learning about debt, as you're talking about now, I don't want to call out any credit card companies. There's a couple credit card companies sending these credit cards to kids in college. But, maybe one day I might get a commercial with one of these, so I don't want to piss them off. But so they send these credit cards to these kids, so they send them to me and my friends. And we would just go we just go up and buying up everything. And we be pat each other on the back, man, we really screwing these people. We're getting over on these folks. And so we only got to pay this much. And then I was in college for 3 years. And then when I got to the NBA, when I started meeting like people who knew how to handle money, like, well, what's this debt stuff you got going on? I said, well, we got these credit cards. We were getting over on these people. We buying all this shit, blah, 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 blah. He says, you do know you only paying the interest, right? I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. He says, Charles, they send those credit cards to poor people who need it, and you just buy up a bunch of stuff, and you pay, quote unquote, the minimum, which it's not even an interest in most cases. And then by the time you figure it out later, something that costs $1,700, you paid like $4,000 for it by the time you actually get it. I was like, damn. And so that's one of the reasons I try to teach my friends. I tell yo, man, do not get these credit cards. And if you get those credit cards, pay them off each month. Yep. Or pay them off as soon as possible. It's like sometimes you run into stuff where you just need some stuff.
Yeah.
I said, but do not pay that damn minimum because you're going to pay 2 to 3 times whatever something costs because they only send you a couple credit cards in college. Like, wait a minute, why are they sending me credit cards in college and I ain't got no damn job? Because that's part of the hustle they got going on. And, it's stuff like that. I try to teach my friends, yo, man, do not be maxing out these credit cards. Get whatever you get and pay it off. Don't hold on, pay it off. And that's the type of stuff I try to teach my homeboys in my small town in Alabama, because there's a lot of scams out there that Black people don't know about. And poor white people in the same boat too. They're in the same boat. I mean, because that goes back to what I said earlier. It's really about economics. Because I use this analogy when I'm speaking. You got to understand something about being poor and Black and poor and white. The baseball analogy. It's 3 strikes in baseball. But if you're born poor in this country, you got 2 strikes against you. You're going to be in a shit neighborhood. You're going to be in a shit school. And they're going to say, good luck. And like I say, me and you got hit because we were really great at basketball. But most of the people they ain't got that type of talent. And that don't mean negative about them. That's just a fact. And if you don't have that self-discipline, you get yourself in debt and and it's a long uphill climb for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. No, I think for me, even learning once I got to the NBA, my first year of filing taxes, my mother, I had done so much for my mother that first year that my business manager was like, hey, I think you should claim her on your taxes. At that point was the first time I ever learned how much money my mom made. And I always wonder about this, especially in neighborhoods like ours. One thing with me and my kids is I try to teach them about money now. Because, growing up in the neighborhoods that we grew up in, it's like I'd ask my mom, hey, Mom, how much did that cost? Enough? Or, Mom, can we afford to pay for that? And it's just no. Well, why can't we afford to pay for that? Or, Mom, how much money you make? You got a roof over your head, don't you? And the reality is, I'm
you
so
don't even
appreciative.
Know you're poor.
Exactly. And I'm so appreciative of my mom. And you can never be mad at your parents just for not knowing what they didn't know. They didn't know anything about finances either. But the reality is if we don't learn to correct that, especially as a culture, and really teach our children about finances, good, bad, or indifferent, now while they are still kids, we're going to continue this dying cycle of our culture and not understanding financial literacy by hiding it. You know, you're trying to hide the fact. Like, I think at that point, I found out my mom made $17,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there like, are you kidding me? Like, I remember growing up, my mom would say, we poor. Like, I would ask for something, and she'd be like, we poor. I'd be like, whatever. Like, we had a roof over our head. I had clothes on my back. I had shoes. Exactly. And so I'm like, whatever. Until I saw that, I was like, wow. But how do we ever change that if we don't get comfortable enough with whether we're poor, middle class, rich, wealthy, if we never get comfortable enough with sharing that information with our children?
Well, I think the number one thing we got to do is we've got to okay, guys, I'm not going to be an enabler. Mm-hmm. I'm not just going to give you money and let you blow it. Because once you start giving people money, they're never going to stop. They're never going to stop. You got to teach them how to handle money. Because some people get in debt one time. That's understandable. But when you come around asking for money all the time, you just becoming an enabler. You know, I remember my mom, I got one pair of shoes to start the season because that's all she could afford. And she would bring them to the game. And she would come to the locker room after the game and get them. So they had to last me the whole season. And that's because my mom was a maid. I lived with my mom and my grandmother. My mom was a maid, and my grandmother worked in a meat factory. So I guarantee you neither one of them made over $20,000. Raising four boys total, actually, because two of my brothers have passed away. And I couldn't imagine until she's like, Charles, you're going to get one pair of shoes. They got to last you the whole season. You can wear them to school once the season over, but you're going to have to wear raggedy shoes to school every day. But I'm going to get you a brand new pair of shoes to start the season. It was so funny. She brought them to the game, and she came, it was like, knocked on the door after the game. He's like, no, you're not wearing those shoes out the rest of the night. I used to joke about that later in life, but that was it. Those shoes had to last me the whole season. And,
absolutely.
You know, living in the projects, you know, my mom and grandma did an amazing job, but living in projects, like, you don't even know you poor. Like, we ate our meals. We never were hungry. I mean, it was tough sleeping in bunk beds growing up, but never even realized, quote unquote, we were poor until later in life. Like, oh, we were poor. But my mother and grandmother, they were both hardworking ladies. And like I say, I got very lucky because I could dribble a stupid basketball around. And I was very fortunate to change the whole dynamic of my family. And hopefully I can keep sharing that. You know, one of the things, I do a lot of work with historically Black colleges, and I try to tell them, like, you got to learn how to handle money. No matter how much money you got to learn how to handle it. If it's $1 million, you got to handle it. If it's $7,000, you got to handle it. It is what it is. The situation you're in, that's your reality. And you're right. One thing about being Black, we got to do a much better job on teaching each other how to handle money.
Absolutely.
And also, we got to make sure that, like, as far as when it comes to crime, we have to tell Black people, yeah, the system is stacked against you criminally. You can't break the law, then say there's systematic racism. Like, yeah, we know there's systematic racism. And you know if you break the law, they're going to put your ass in jail. But you don't get to break the law and come back and say, it's systematic racism. Every Black person in America knows, like, yeah, there's systematic racism. I know that I can't break the law. But I always laugh when these guys break the law and says, well, it's the system. I'm like, no shit, it's the system. Everybody knows the system is racist. It's systematic racism. So you knew you couldn't do stupid stuff and you still went out and did stupid stuff. That's what pisses me off sometimes.
Absolutely. Now, and switching gears just a little bit, because we are talking about African Americans. A question that I wanted to ask you, because I've had a very similar, not similar in necessarily what happened, but similar in the outcome. Why is it, especially as African-American men, because we are leaders, why is it that we as African-American men struggle so hard to move on from things and reunite back together? And the situations that I am talking about is my fallout with Kevin, which was a very public thing. Everyone knew about it. Everyone questioned it, blah, blah, blah. Your falling out with MJ, which was kind of a public thing, but everyone knew about it. And yet, I think that is a very important relationship because, number one, both of y'all are two guys that I grew up watching play, two guys that I grew up looking up to, but also two guys that are doing such positive things in our community. And I think one of our biggest issues in our community is he's doing positive over here. He's doing positive over there. She's doing it over here. But we never come together. We never come together and do it all as one. Why is it that we can't move past things like that as African-American men and just allow it to keep moving forward? And as if that's not going to affect the ones coming up from behind us.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, number one, when you're successful, you're stubborn.
Mm-hmm.
So to be successful, you have to have an ego.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's to a fault. But we all have, you're successful, you have an ego, you're stubborn. That's part of what makes you successful. That, to me, is what it's really all about. It's so, first of all, it's always stupid too, to be honest with you. Like, yo, man, I'm sorry, you're sorry. Let's keep it moving. Let's get over this bullshit, whatever it is. But people get stubborn, and you factor in the way we are in television and the internet today. It's like, well, I'm not going to make the first move. You're not going to make the first move. And you got to understand, there's people around both of y'all, both of us, who are probably fanning the flames.
Absolutely.
So it really comes down to silliness, to be honest with you, because we all need each other to be successful. We all need each other to be successful. And it's just about ego and stubbornness. That's all it is. Because very few guys will pick the phone or say, yo, man, my bad. You know, most celebrities get in trouble when they try to handle a messed up situation. Instead of like, they got all these people around like, hey, let's handle it like this. Let's handle it like this. One of the reasons I have been successful, every time that I messed up, Dre, I just said the words, my bad, I'm sorry. And I don't worry about, because there's two factions. There's the public and there's the media. The media, they're in a very unique situation. What I mean by that is they kind of got to pile on, or they lose credibility. When you do something wrong or stupid, the press can't say, oh, it's all right. They're like, nah, I got to keep my credibility. So they're going to throw gasoline on the fire. That's just the way the thing works. So the people around you, you got to have good people around you to tell you like, no, Dre, you probably shouldn't do that. No, Chuck, you probably shouldn't do that. But on the other hand, there's so many people around you, because on the payroll, who listen, nah, man, forget him. He's this, he's that. So there's a lot of variables, but it really comes down to ego and stubbornness. That's all it really comes down to.
And I know for sure that you're capable of putting your ego to the side. By the way, when I first walked out, and I've told this story publicly before, when I first walked on to the set to do the arena with you, Kerry Champion, and Dwayne Wade, I mean, there was no surprise. I was coming on there. We had been talking back and forth in the media. You said you was going to punch me in my face. I said I was going to take your job. Like, we can go on and on and on. It went on for years. And the moment I walked on that set, you got out of your seat. What's up, Draymond? How you doing? And I'll be 100% honest with you. I was walking up there like, whatever happened, happened. If he say something to me, if he want to punch me, I'm ready to go there. And you disarmed me so fast. Like, hey, what's up, man? How you doing? It's great to see you. Welcome. And I'm just sitting there like, what the hell?
Like, you know what's really funny? You remind me a lot of Dennis Rodman. Like, I want to play with you. You'd be annoying as fuck to play against. Like, I saw Dennis at the 75 thing, and we hugged each other like brothers. He's somebody I really like a lot and respect. You're the same way. It would be annoying to play against you because, number one, I don't think you've ever committed a foul. and that's, hey, listen, that makes me laugh every time. But I think sometimes people don't realize, and you're going to realize it too, like at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, sometimes you're like, this dude is driving me crazy tonight. He's arguing with the refs all night. And then Shaq said, what do you want to do? And I just said, I just want to punch him in the face. And then what pissed me off about that night, to be honest with you, I was joking around, and then a reporter asked you that, and then you got to see. That's one thing I tell brothers. You have to be really careful because everybody's got pride and ego. Mm-hmm. And I knew when I heard him ask you that question, I said, "Oh man, this dude gonna think I'm serious about punching him. I ain't never gonna punch an NBA player because we're all in the same family." But I knew because a lot of guys don't understand, like the media, when they ask you a question, they want you to come back at a dude. They want you to keep it going. That's why I never respond. When guys say bad stuff about me, I says, I take that, goes with the job. Because the media, number one, they don't know a lot about basketball. So when they have two guys just going back and forth at each other, it's just crazy. And like you kind of doing it, I said, we're doing their job for them. Like, no, man, you write about basketball. Don't write about these two guys. Because, like, why are you writing about two guys who said something about each other? That's like right now, I haven't heard Giannis's response, but I heard Charles Oakley say that Giannis would be like coming off, he's not that good of a player, and he'd be coming off the bench in our date. And, like, I hope Giannis don't respond because then they're going to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And, like, nobody wins because Giannis is a great, great player. That dude can flat out ball. I mean, what's going to be very interesting in the next 10 to 15 years, man, he going to, if he, he going to set so many records because he's getting an easy 28 a night for the next 10, because he's only like 25.
Yeah, young.
Yeah.
He's young.
But I hope he don't respond because that was a stupid statement. It was unnecessary. But like I say, that night when I said that, I was joking around. It was like, remember, y'all always the late game. So it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. And I was joking around with Shaq and Kenny. And then I saw when that reporter asked you that question, I said, oh, man, he going to think I'm serious. But like I say, you remind me a lot of Dennis. Because Dennis, man, that dude was a heck of a player. He was a hell of a player. He was so damn annoying to play against because you trying to concentrate on basketball. And now he made it personal instead of you just playing basketball. I'm trying to go at him. I'm trying to go at Dennis every play now. Hey, yo, man, I'm here sick of hearing what a great defender you are. You're talking trash. I'm going at your ass every time. And he gets in your head. And you do exactly the same thing. So, man, when you came in the studio, the first time I met you was in New Orleans.
Yeah, I remember that.
I remember. I said, you're gonna be a hell of an NBA player. We talked. We were at some bar having fun as usual, and then I say, welcome to the NBA. Blah 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 blah. And listen, you've had a hell of a career so far, and the future's still bright. You got a long way to go.
Thank you.
But I just think that. And you're going to learn this too. There's going to be guys who, when you have to talk about guys, they're going to be like, I want to play with that dude, but he's annoying as hell. Because it's like now, if I played against Luka, This dude complains on he's a hell of a player. He's a hell.
Yes,
I
he
watched
is.
y'all game Sunday night. I said he got another technical, but he complains on every play. And what he doesn't even realize, he's making contact with the defense, which all great offensive players. So he is getting hit. But if he was asked to go back and look at the tape, he's the one making the contact.
He does create a lot of contact.
The best player I've seen do that is Allen Iverson. Because he's such a little dude and a great player, he always hit the defense first. Mm-hmm. And me being a 6'5" guy, I hit the defense every time. And every time they didn't call a foul, I'm like, damn, dude, you didn't see that? And I didn't realize until I went back and watched the tape. I'm like, oh, I asked the one who made contact with him because I had to get the 6'9" guy off of me. Mm-hmm. And a lot of guys are like that. When they're great offensive players, depending on their size advantage, they always hit the defense first. That's the way you get them off your foot. When I played against McHale, he's the best player I ever played against. I had to hit him like every single time. And because he was so long and lanky, but I was making contact with him every time. And every time they didn't call a foul, I bitched and complained about it.
And switching gears a little bit, and just going back to the set, you and Shaq go at each other more than anybody I know. Do y'all ever get to the point of where you like, man, that was too much? Like, do y'all ever get to the point where y'all really pissed at each? Because I know y'all are best of friends, but do y'all ever get to the point to where you like, yo, that was too much, or that really pissed you off, or you really pissed him off?
I hope I pissed him off. Because, because Dre, what he really don't understand is he's always been the best player and the biggest, baddest dude.
Absolutely.
And what me and Kenny try to explain to him, and you probably can explain also, like, dude, we ain't more talented than everybody we play against. There's a strategy. There's a strategy. There's some techniques and things like that are really important. But he's never had to worry about that, Drake, because he's always been the biggest, most athletic guy in the world.
Yeah.
And he gets so mad when we try to talk basketball. I says, and me and Kenny argue with him all the time. He like, why don't they just get the ball to the big man, let him dominate? He's like, check, nobody's like you and Wilt Chamberlain. There's a strategy. Like me and Kenny and Dre, we have to have a strategy every night, especially against whoever you're playing against. And he refuses to listen to that. So then he goes, right, well, you didn't win the championship. I said, you're right. That still don't mean you don't. We're talking basketball strategy. And I know every time I call him out on the strategy, he gets so pissed, and I love it. but the thing that I try to get him to understand is, Shaq, we ain't all like you. You've always been the biggest, baddest dude. You're bigger, stronger, faster than everybody you play against. When I play against Bird, McHale, Karl Malone, those three are the best, or Kevin Garnett, like I have to watch tape and figure out how I'm going to be successful against this dude. Mm-hmm. I really have to think. I says, I'm going to be 6'5" every day. When I'm playing against 6'9" Bird, I got to try to figure out how to attack him or stop him. So McHale, he's 7 feet tall. I just can't post a 7-foot guy up. Karl Malone, Kevin Garnett. I mean, when I'm playing, and he refuses to understand that there's any strategy in basketball. And you, as a player who survives on smart, like you're gonna have to have a game plan against a lot of guys.
Absolutely. And
that's one of the reasons you've been successful. But he refuses to believe there's any strategy in basketball. So it makes me mad. And then I'll go at him. I says, you just don't know anything about basketball. Then he gets mad, which makes me mad, laughs more inside. And Ken is poking me under the table like, get him. And then so I know when I get him, you didn't win anything. I'm like, yeah, I know, but we're talking basketball strategy. So it's fun for me to rile him up. But I wish that he would sit back and says, oh, maybe there is a strategy, but we all live in our own existence.
Absolutely.
He's never like, I need to have a strategy against Stanley Roberts, Dikembe Mutombo, Rick Smits, Patrick Ewing. Probably the only big guy who schooled him was probably Akeem.
Yeah.
And then once he became the full force he became, like, he was pretty much unstoppable. But he has always been the biggest, baddest dude. So he refused to believe there's any strategy in basketball. And I just laughed my ass off because, like, yo, man, you do know there's actually a strategy in basketball, depending on who you playing against. But because of how great he was, he doesn't care. And yeah, so anytime I can get his blood pressure up, I love it.
When he hits you with the G14 classification or you don't got ring, does that ever irk you? And what do you make of what people make of rings? Because in some cases, I think, they can be overvalued sometimes for certain guys. Like certain guys, you didn't really contribute to get in that ring, but you got the ring, great. In some cases, it does matter.
But I don't get listen, and I'm not sensitive or whatever. If people want, I'm trying to figure out, just because a couple of jackasses on television like Skip Bayless, who I hate more than life itself, starts talking about who won and who didn't won, a guy who never played, and now they're making a great living doing that. But what bothers me about that is basketball is not an individual sport.
Absolutely.
Like, to go on television and talk about, just because it makes great TV, like, wait, dude, basketball is a team game. You're making a great living because it's easy for people to attack certain guys, the stars. Mm-hmm. They don't, because I'll tell this, I say this, nobody ever says, hey, man, Mark West didn't win the championship. Kevin Johnson, two are great teammates. Nobody ever said Dan Martin didn't win. But you get a guy like Skip Bayless on television who's got a radio show and a following. He picks shots about certain guys who were great players who didn't win the championship, and he's made a great living doing it. Mm-hmm. But my thing has always been, wait, y'all do know it's a team game, right? So that's the only time I get mad, when guys who've never played the game talk about who hasn't won anything. And listen, and the point you said earlier, a couple seconds ago, like, I don't even get mad at guys who can't play dead who get rings.
Yeah.
Good for them. But I don't want guys talking around talking about the dude never won anything. And like, yo, man, you didn't even play in the game. I mean, like, you can say to yourself, oh, I was a big part of the Warriors winning. Like, but if some guy came at me who didn't even get in the game, talking about he won the championship, I'm like, yo, man, you crossing the line right now. But that's the only time. But I get offended when guys who've never played, who are making a lot of money, talk about, well, he never won anything. Like, well, number one, you never played. Let's get that out the way. But to attack guys who are great at their sport, and there's a lot of guys who are great. I mean, you look at Carl was great, John Stockton was great, Patrick Ewing was great. They just never played on the best team. Mm-hmm. But to minimize what they did because it makes good internet, they were on Matt Stafford before he got one this year. Wait, did Matt Stafford get better? No, he went to a better team.
He did go to a better team.
He went to a better team. Absolutely. I mean, he never won a playoff game in Detroit. He went to championship. Now, what? All of a sudden, he's a great, great player. I wish him nothing but the best, but he went to a great team. But, that was a narrative when the year started. He's not that good. He's not that good. Now he won, like, okay, now they go to the next guy. So it's probably going to be I think Josh Allen, who's great, probably got a couple more years. It's going to be tricky on Pat Mahomes. They're going to turn against him. They've already started turning against him. They've turned against Aaron Rodgers. So if you get one, then you get him off your back for a minute. Then well, he only won one.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of sit back and laugh when guys who've actually never strapped them up make money talking about who never won anything.
No, absolutely. I didn't used to pay attention to a lot of the stuff, and I say over the last, and I don't watch a lot of it now, but because of Instagram, you see everything pop up on your phone. And like Skip Bayless, for instance, it's baffling to me. I remember a time when, media guys couldn't be homers.
Yeah.
You even riding one guy like Skip does, LeBron, it was almost viewed as distasteful. And now it's no, that's a real thing. The way he rides LeBron James, no matter what LeBron does, that's a real thing. Where did that change? How did we go from you can't be a homer to that? It's two totally different ends of the spectrum.
Well, when guys started making money doing that, because now it's a full-fledged business. Skip Bayless hates LeBron and Aaron Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I hate that because the one thing I try to do is I'm never going to lie on television because people believe what they see on television.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have watched Skip Bayless, you know he hates LeBron and he hates Aaron Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
And that ain't right in my opinion, because let me tell you something. LeBron James, I think now I'm an MJ guy. I make that clear. But I think what LeBron has accomplished is arguably the greatest story in sports history. For number one, you look at Kobe, Kevin Garnett, guys like that, they were not good players when they first got to the NBA.
That is true. That's true.
LeBron is the only player in my 40 years in the NBA who played great from day one.
Absolutely.
And for him to turn into one of the best players ever, he's never gotten in trouble, especially in this 24-hour news cycle with social media.
Mm-hmm.
For him to be as great as he's been from the year 18 to where he's at now, I think it's one of the great stories in sports history. Because number one, he was that good from day one.
Yep.
Which, like I said, as great as Kobe became and Kevin Garnett, guys like that, they were not good their first few years.
Mm-hmm.
But LeBron was good from day one. And for him to never have gotten in trouble and kept that level of excellence up, I think it's one of the greatest stories ever, in my opinion.
No, I agree 100%. I always tell people with LeBron, that he got the chosen one tattooed across his back. He had that tattoo in high school. You know, King James. He was anointed King James in high school. I think for what's so incredible to me about LeBron is he probably had the highest expectations of any high school, any player, but especially high school player ever coming into the NBA. Even Michael Jordan didn't have the expectations to become who Michael Jordan became when he came out of North Carolina. LeBron probably had the highest expectations. Not only did he live up to them, he exceeded them.
100%. We've never, like I said, even those guys I mentioned earlier, LeBron was the only one who came in with that, you're supposed to be the next great player. And he exceeded that.
It's insane.
But the thing is amazing, though, Dre, in this 24-hour news cycle where people got cameras all the time, what he has exceeded off the court also, between his greatness at basketball and what he's accomplished off the court. And he's never really had a serious PR. The decision thing, leaving Cleveland, things like that, But to never get in trouble is one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in my life.
Absolutely. I mean, even the decision raised what, $10 million for charity or something like that.
Well, they kind of did that because they knew they had messed up. They had to do something charity-wise, because that was a bad thing. I mean, in retrospect, I think it was a bad thing. I think they threw the charitable aspect out there because, we're getting killed right now. But like I say, I don't even hold that against him because, man, to deal with all that pressure he's dealt with, I just think it's an incredible story.
Absolutely. A couple more questions. I know we've been on for a while, and I'll sit here and talk to you all day, as you know. I mean, all we need is a glass of Lobos or something, and we'll keep this thing rolling. But
no question, brother. No question.
But does it – one of the things that I really wanted to focus on and coming on TV, and especially being an active player, was how do I be critical of guys and say what needs to be said without disrespecting a guy or making them feel like I'm hating on them? Because I know we hear a lot, I even hear it a lot today. I don't really get off into it no more because I see the other side of things.
Yeah.
But you hear a lot today for instance, when Uncle Oak today, his comment came out, some of my boys hit me and they're like, why would he say this and this, that, and other? And you hear younger players always say, man, them older guys are haters and they just be hating and they mad because they ain't make as much money and blah, blah, blah. Does it ever bother you when a guy who you may say something about on TV start to dislike you personally, or you see them and they don't want to speak, or it's tension there? Does that ever bother you?
No, because, Dre, if you're going to be great at this business, and I think you're going to be, you got to keep your credibility.
Mm-hmm.
You got to keep your credibility, because that goes back to what we're talking about. The reason I don't like Skip Bayless is he covers for guys he likes. You can't pick out LeBron and Aaron because you don't like them, or that drives your ratings and your social media stuff, and then talk good about guys who are not nearly as good, how great they are, and blah, blah, blah. So he's become a television personality, but I think it's important to keep your like, say, okay, I might not like what Charles said, but he's gonna be fair. Listen, there's gonna be times you have to criticize guys. There's gonna be times you have to criticize guys you like.
Mm-hmm.
Or the fans gonna be like, oh, Draymond just, he likes his guys and he's hard on the guys he don't like. Well, then you're gonna lose your credibility. I don't think anybody can say in my 21 years that I said, oh, Charles just don't like that guy. But I do think there's a way you can criticize guys without, I just say, yo, man, the guy just had a bad game. He played awful tonight. I don't have to say, oh, man, he sucks as a player. He's awful. I'm like, no, he didn't have a good game. First of all, they just saw this dude have a bad game. They just saw this dude have a bad game. If I get on TV and talk about, well, he didn't have that bad of a game, they're going to be like, oh, that's Chuck's boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Chuck's boy. He kills other people. So the number one thing you have to do is keep your credibility, because once you lose that, the players ain't going to respect you, but more importantly, the fans ain't going to respect you. Because when you're on television, you're really trying to relate to the fans. And like I say, they might disagree with you, but as long as you're fair, they're going to be cool with it. But the number one thing, though, Dre, when you get into this business full time, the people saw what just happened. They saw like, wait a minute. Did Dre just say this dude played good and he played like trash? So you can't, if you do that, they're going to be like, I'm not going to listen to this dude anymore. He got his guys he liked, he killed the guys he didn't like. So that's the key, keeping your credibility. So to answer your question, man, I got to do my job.
Absolutely.
I got to do my job.
Absolutely. No, I respect that. And before we get out of here, like I said at the top of the show, you've won Emmys. Are there any goals for you that you set for yourself that you want to accomplish before you say, like, because obviously as basketball players, you know, we all set these goals, right? Like, I want to win a championship, or I want to win a Defensive Player of the Year, or be an All-Star. You set these goals for yourself, and you say, I want to do this by the time I retire. Is there anything left for you in TV that you want to do that you say, I have to do this before I say I'm done?
No, I think for me, we are in every broadcasting Hall of Fame there is. I think we are considered by far the best television sports show ever.
Absolutely.
That means a lot to all of us.
Mm-hmm.
That means a lot to all of us. I do think it's a joke that we get awards and things like that. I'm not going to lie. I was like, wait a minute, y'all going to pay us and give us trophies? But the number one thing I want fans to say, I might not like Charles Barkley opinion, but you know what? He tries to be fair and honest. That's all I really care about. You know, when I got in this business, my mentor said to me, Dick Ebersol, he says, I think you're going to be great on TV. He said, but you're always going to be in trouble. I said, what does that mean? He said, Charles, fans only want one or two things. They want you to tell them their favorite player is great and their team is great. Mm-hmm. He said, they don't want anything else. He says, now they're going to respect you, but they ain't going to like you. That's like when I meet Knicks fans. They're like, why you hate the Knicks? I says, yo, man, I don't hate the Knicks. Y'all been sucking for 20 years. Why? You want me to get on TV and say they good, right? Is that what you want? I mean, I've been here anytime, seriously, for 20-some years on TV. Anytime I'm in New York, they're like, oh, you hate the Knicks. I'm like, man, the Knicks been trashed as long as I've been on television. What do you want me to say? You want me to get on TV and say the Knicks got a good team. And I'm going to look like a fool. Because other than last year when they had a decent year, I can't remember them having a good year. I think Carmelo had a couple of great years there, but the team wasn't very good. But when you're in New York, they're like, you a hater on the Knicks. I'm like, yo, man, seriously, you really want me to get on TV and kill my credibility saying the Knicks got a good team? I ain't never lied about the Knicks. They've been awful. But I want fans to know that I just don't have a hidden agenda. That's the number one thing, plain and simple.
I respect that. Chuck, I appreciate you. I think for me, again, I just want to say thank you for what you've done. I mean, you went from being a Hall of Fame basketball player to transcending the broadcasting career after you're done playing. I don't think I can recall anyone that's done what you've done after the basketball career that you had, and it's incredible. So just from guys like myself and other guys that want to take that route, I just want to say thank you. And I think one of the most incredible things I can say about you that showed me what type of person you was, I always tell people, because people still walk up to me like, oh, fuck Chuck, and like all of this stuff. And I'd be like, man, listen, that's one of my favorite people. And I knew that was evident for me. Two things. Number one, I'm sitting in the green room, you know, I'm new on the job. I'm sitting in my locker room. You come in the studio loud as hell, of course, like only Chuck does. But you were speaking to everyone. And not only were you speaking to everyone, it was, yo, what's up, Ant? Who most everybody don't know Ant, but Ant's the man behind the camera, you know? And like, quite frankly, in most worlds, you wouldn't talk to Ant, right? Like,
no, but I'm telling you though, the one thing, those people, I speak to everybody every night. I mean, for some reason, these fools have to go in there like 12 o'clock in the day. And I'm saying to myself, oh, we don't go on to 7 o'clock. What the hell y'all been doing here since noon? They're like, Chuck, we got to do this. We got to do this. And I'm sitting there like, nah, that's no shit take no 7 hours for y'all to do. Mm-hmm. They're like, Chuck, we have to show up at 12 for a 7 o'clock show. So, Dre, I learned when I go there, like, they work I don't even know what they're doing, but it's got to be hard work for them to get there 7 hours in advance. Mm-hmm. So I make sure every time I go in the studio, I say, hey, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing? How you doing? Because, like I said, I don't know what the hell they're doing for 7 hours, but I appreciate them being there for 7 hours. Absolutely. I respect their time. And I really appreciate your kind words. And listen, whenever my journey is over, whether we work together or not, hey, man, take it to the next level. You're going to be great on television. You got charisma and personality, and it's going to be great when you take over.
I appreciate it, man. Like I said, I thank you for paving the way. I'm looking forward to catching up soon, my brother. And like I said, I'm letting
Get
Steve
your ass
Kerr know,
on the court, too.
I'll be back out there in a few weeks, and I'm dominating their ass again, Chuck. But I'm letting Steve Kerr know right on this podcast right now, if Chuck's 60th birthday party happens on the night of a game, I will not be there. I will be at Chuck's 60th birthday party. I don't care who in the media got something to say about it. I don't care if y'all want to light me up or rip me a new one. I'm at Chuck's 60th, and that's how it's going.
Hey, let me tell you this. Y'all keep winning, because I want to see the Phoenix Suns against the Golden State Warriors. We got the Western Conference this year.
Yes, sir.
I want to sleep in my own bed in Phoenix, and I want to make that short trip to San Francisco. So y'all both get it done. I'll see you in the Western Conference Finals, my brother.
Yes, sir, my brother. Thank you, Chuck. I appreciate you.
Okay, brother. Y'all be safe.